Today we're going to be installing OSP Racing's heavy-duty Jackshaft with reverse into 2014 Procross 9000. So basically what we got now, took the gas tank and stuff off just so you guys can see it a little easier. You won't have to do that to install it. I basically took the stock Jackshaft out by removing the nut and clip, pulling the shaft out of the other way, beating the bearing out this way. And now we're here, so you can see we got our chain case on this side and that side, and we got our bearings and our shims that come with the kit. So basically this bearing, the radial bearing, is going to be installed into the chain case side. So we're going to go ahead and do that with our special bearing installer that we sell also. Perfect size for these bearings. Okay, so now we just drove that bearing in using this tool like so you can see, drives it in, hit it with a hammer. So now this is installed all the way down, and we want to ensure that the clip is all the way seated, see, so you can see the bearing inside of the ring. So now we're going to go ahead and install that snap ring back in, stock snap ring back in, so the bearing can't walk back out on us. Okay, so now we have the ring fully seated in there, as you can see. Nice and down. So now we're going to go ahead and test fit the Jackshaft for the first time and just see where we're at. So now with the Jackshaft, you can see there's two different ends. The side that has threads on it, and the side that doesn't. The side that has threads is the one that goes into the chain case side. The opposite side is the clutch side. Okay, so now with the Jackshaft installed for the first time, no bearing in the other side, as you can see. Wiggle this around and you can see the threads come out. And we can check to see that it's pushed in all the way by how far it's through. So this is looking good here. So now we're going to take and set our shim for the other side for the width of the machine. And so now we have two different sets of shims that come in the kit. We have the 1-inch shims that go through here. They go on this side for here. And then we have the larger shims for over here. They go on the bearing side that shim out for the case. Okay, so now what we're looking for on the PTO side is that we're going to put the shims on the shaft in order to bring out the flat into to the corner of the bearing housing. So that way basically our shaft is pulled all the way through and it can't walk back and forth throughout the bearings. Makes it stiffer. Okay, on the PTO side we got to put some shims to shim out for the case of the bearing. So basically how I do it is we'll start out with the thick and the thin. That's what most sleds require. And we'll put it up, and then you can see as you butt it to the edge, the shims are right flush with the lip of the bearing. So when you install the bearing, then the Jackshaft won't have any play between the two bearing housings. So that's how we take up for the slip joint on the other side. So now with these in here, we'll go ahead and take the square bearing, the sealed bearing here included. We'll go ahead and knock that in with our bearing driver, same bearing driver from the other side. Okay, so now with our bearing driven in, you can see we're all the way down past the lip, and that's what you want to check. If you have too much shim, the bearing won't be seated down into the lip and you won't be able to get the snap ring back in. And you can also see the bearing is right at the tang on the shaft, which means that it's seated fully down and the bearing's all the way on. And then just feel the shaft for any binding or anything. Should feel smooth. It's gonna have some resistance because of the oil seal on the crankcase or on the chain case side right here. See, there's a seal inside of there. You want to be careful to not damage that when you're inserting the Jackshaft. So now that we have the PTO bearing installed, we'll go back over and shim for the chain and gears. Okay, so now back onto the chain case side, we're gonna go ahead and install the stock star ring and nut back on from there. So this will just go on. You want to have it so the tangs are facing out. Okay, so now with our nut and washer on, and when we're tightening this nut, you want to make sure not to kill it. So basically you want, okay, so the other check you can do before you get too off the fire to make sure your shimming is correct is you can see here on the back side of the PTO bearing, I can see the shims. So I can just reach my finger in there and push on them, feel that they're snugged up to the shaft, everything's pin smooth, so I know I got the correct shim in the sled set up. Now we're going to go ahead with the chain and gears. So we're basically going to use these high-vo gears. So they get installed like so, but we're going to go ahead and use this large shim that we supply you first. And we can start there, and then we can get the gear on. And get the bottom gear on, see, so the bigger tang hanging out goes in. Okay, so you can see there we got good clearance on the side of the case. Comes right to the edge of the thing, so that bottom gear is installed correctly. You can see here on the top gear right now, you have a little bit of space between the clip and the shim. So we want to basically shim our gear to where it is in a perfectly straight line. Our top gear is non-movable, it's fixed. So we're basically going to go off of this bottom gear and then work the top gear to be square to the bottom gear. Then once we have our chain offset set correctly, then we can go ahead and put the clip in, finish the rest of the install. So I'm going to go ahead and get our straight edge. You need about an 8-inch straight edge to achieve this, to check your chain parallelism. Okay, so with our gear pushed all the way to the top, and we're just going to go ahead and put our straight edge on to the outside of the gears, see, so we're riding on the two outside edges of the gear, flush and flat, and we're going to bring it down, and we're going to see that we need to have a little shim in it. So we'll pull this out to about here, and that's what we're looking for, is to be square. So we'll go ahead and stick a shim behind the gear, try it again. Okay, so now at this point, I've used up the two shims that we supplied in the kit behind. We want to make sure that you put the thickest shim behind the gear. And now, I still need a little bit more shim, so I'm just going to go ahead and use one of the stock shims that came out of the case. So we can put 3 behind there, and we'll put this gear on, and we'll go ahead and check our parallelism. And we can see we're just a hair off. So, go ahead and put one more 20th shim. Doing, you bring your square into it like that, so as you can see if you're off or not. You just bring it up, you could not be square. So we're looking really good there. So we're touching on 2 tangs down at the bottom, and we're touching at the top. You can swing our square out. Perfect. So that's where we're going to run our gear at. So now we're going to take the remaining stock shims and we're going to go ahead and shim out to that clip. So we should only need about 1 or 2, and we want to make sure that we're using the smaller shims that are smaller than the gear size, than this outside diameter here. Because if these are bigger than that, then this gear sprag can't engage these sprags on that gear. So we'll go ahead and put one of these on. Okay, so you can see there with the one thick one that was from the stock setup, you can see we are perfect to the clip. So we'll just go ahead and install our clip, and we'll have one leftover stock shim, which is fine. Okay, so now before you install this clip, you're going to want to go ahead and install the chain and gear, or the chain on the gears, because once you get this clip on, the top gear won't be removable anymore. So you want to go ahead and get that all set up, and we'll get the chain on and the clip in. Okay, so now with our chain and gears all installed, we're going to go ahead and just take the shift gear, try it out real quick, and note that it fully seats down over the drive gear. We want to make sure that it's going to go all the way down. We want to make sure that we don't have any slop in our drive gear here. A tiny little bit, maybe 5 thousandths or less, is going to be okay, but anything more than that is not going to work. So then once this is fully seated on, then we know we're good to go. Make sure it'll fully come unseated. And that is installing the Jackshaft on a Procross 9000 turbo. Thanks for watching. Okay, so now with the whole reverse mechanism installed, kind of see what it looks like. You got to remember the washer on the front and the back up here, and the chain going through. Then we're going to check our adjuster or our shift fork mechanism to ensure that our gear is getting engaged fully down when it's a mechanism. So you can see there it pulls up all the way down and it bottoms out there. So we're good to go. And that's all we need for Jackshaft. Okay, so today we're going to be installing OSP's new Gen 2 manual chain adjuster. As you can see, the new updates include a fully tapered rear pivot to reduce stress and fatigue on the stock aluminum piece. As you can see here on this sled has about 400 miles on it, and you can already see where the stock adjuster is wearing out the tang. We've seen instances of high mileage sleds where that is worn severely. So the new taper cuts down on that because it reduces the surface area that it's grabbing on. So it makes everything stronger, lasts longer. The adjuster is more sturdy on the taper because it's grabbing more of it. Barely even wiggle it. And you see, you want to make sure that it sticks through about that much, so that way the cover can come down and close on it. So the installation of the Gen 2 chain adjuster is the same as the Gen 1 ones. The same style kit, bolt through. This is our piece that went for the ratchet. So let's put that in. And we also give you a sharpened bolt to mark the center hole of your hole that you got to drill. And the key to doing this is you want to ensure that when you tighten your bolt, you're holding your piece in perfect position so as to give you a perfect center mark. And then you can just simply take and drill out a 3/8 hole in your case and install the threaded bolt with rubber washer first, and then flat washer, and then lock nut. And that'll just go through, push on the adjuster, and adjust the chain manually. Okay, so now with our chain case drilled and our piece installed, you want to ensure, after you get the hole drilled, that the piece is sitting down squarely. So basically, you need to take the bolt out, push in on the piece, and then start the bolt. If you can't start the bolt without it moving up, then you need to clearance the hole a little more back to allow it to set down. Because see, if this part here is sitting above this lip, then the chain case will leak oil when you go to tighten it up. So we got to ensure that this is sitting back flush and exposing that lip to be tightened. So now once we're happy that everything is flush and tight, like we are, we'll go ahead and install the chain adjuster. And ensure that it's sitting back enough. As you can see, it needs to be below the lip also to ensure the cover clears. Now before we slide the cover on, we're going to take and we're going to very carefully clearance on this piece right here with just a 90 sander or belt sander or whatever you have. You just got to take about an 1/8 inch off of it just to ensure that it doesn't push up on the piece. Okay, so here you can see the adjuster all in and tight. And as you can see now with the new adjuster, we have a lot more area to bump on the bolt. Therefore we can run a lot more different gear ratios. where before we were limited into pretty close to stock range. Now you'll be able to run anything from stock to super geared up. You go 180 miles an hour if you want. So you also want to check, and you want to run your chain about that tight. Don't want to have it banjo tight. You want to have slight deflection in it, about like that, where it's taut, but you can still wiggle it. That's how I like to run them. Once your case is closed up, I like to take and loosen the adjuster and then wiggle the converter back and forth until I can feel chain slop, and then continue tightening the adjuster bolt until you can't feel the chain slop anymore in the converter. And then that's a really good way to get this about same tension here, because as you can see, there's hardly any chain slop in it. You see it's just barely wiggling when I move it. And that's what we're looking for. So with all of that complete, everything down and our piece surfaced, we can go ahead and put our cover on, and our installation is complete of the OSP manual chain adjuster.